I believe that's, correct. That was the date.
So we're still operating pursuant to the statute. And anyone that's going to be a witness, if I can go ahead and call the meeting to order, and then I'll swear everyone in.
Okay.
You can all raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
And so county was still proceeding, so if you want to resume, unless there's any preliminary issues.
Your Honor, I think we were in the middle, and Mr. Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we were in the middle of Mr. Brown's cross-examination of Cheryl Bostic.
That is correct. I had begun to examine Ms. Bostic on some of her testimony.
Okay.
And Madam Magistrate, can I find out now at the last, may I?
Yes.
At the last hearing, Ms. Bostic was given the testimony in the place of Mr. Cribbs. And I see that Mr. Cribbs is here now. I want to find out from this point forward, is he here to talk? He's here to talk about something that she hasn't already discussed, or is he here to attempt to rehash some of the things that she discussed on her direct?
We don't plan to have Inspector Cribbs rehash what Ms. Bostic has discussed. Inspector Cribbs was involved in re-inspections on this property in 2019 and on a go-forward basis. So we have presented him because you suggested at the last hearing that you would want to cross-examine him. So we have him present, and I'm also going to present through him his inspections from 2019 to most recently.
That's fine. Okay, fine. May I proceed, Madam Magistrate?
Yeah, no other preliminary issues?
Time frame, how much time have you allotted for this afternoon?
My afternoon is clear.
Okay.
I wasn't sure how much time was going to be needed, so you have me for the duration of the afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay, so you may, if there's nothing else, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Magistrate. Ms. Bostic, the last time when you were here, when you were testifying about this matter, you indicated that you were testifying pertaining to the original notice of violation that was served. Let me get my glasses here.
You're on mute, Mr. Brown. We can't hear you.
Okay, somehow, I don't know how that happened. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Bostic, the last time when you were testifying regarding the original code enforcement hearing that took place in 2016, correct?
Correct.
Right, and in your testimony, you indicated that your assertion that my property was a quote nuisance came from what you perceived to be language in that order, correct?
Correct. You were cited for that section code.
All right, and that section, and under that section code, what constitutes a nuisance? How does my property constitute a nuisance under that section code?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to any questioning regarding the original finding of violation. The magistrate entered this order in 2016, finding that the property was in violation of the city's nuisance ordinance. At this point in imposing the lien, the original finding of violations have passed the point of appeal, long past the point of appeal. So any discussion or questioning regarding the original finding of violation would be inappropriate for an order imposing the fine and lien.
That is not accurate, Madam Magistrate. The statute, if you look, she has to go back. I mean, obviously, the genesis of this proceeding is that order that they keep referring to that the magistrate entered in 2016. All right. And the language of that order did not impose a lien. It gave the city the right, if the officer thought so, to bring it back before the magistrate to impose these fines. And by the way, it also referenced in there, and Ms. Bostic referenced the specific nuisance language in that order. And that nuisance language in that order cites to a city code section pertaining to, quote, nuisance. And that code section is section 11.8 of the Riviera Beach Code. So if you recall, Madam Magistrate, Ms. Bostic's and the city's entire case, if you will, that allegedly allows it to try to impose fines on my property and asking you to place a lien on it, is based upon the nuisance language. Because if you, I kept asking her and can establish that I had building permits, that I was redoing and remodeling my property. I asked Ms. Bostic, well, what is it about my property that's a nuisance? And she couldn't answer that. And I believe that since she's relying on that nuisance language that was in the citation, if she's relying on the nuisance reference in the order, and the order says that the code enforcement officers can go out and check and to determine whether or not the property was in compliance, the city has to establish that my property was a nuisance. And in order to establish that my property was a nuisance, they have to go back to their own code, because they cited that code section in the notice of violation. So I should be able to ask the city, what is it that my property constituted a violation of a nuisance under the city code section that they cited in the original citation, and that Ms. Bostic spoke ad nauseum about in the last hearing?
Your Honor, I don't have an issue if Mr. Brown is going to ask what the compliance was for the nuisance violation, and that's what Ms. Bostic previously testified to, based upon the original notice of violation, that he needed to fix the interior and exterior of his property. My point is merely that the prior magistrate's ruling that was not appealed, finding the property in violation of the nuisance provision, section 11-8 of the city's code, is a final and binding finding by a prior magistrate order.
Madam Magistrate, I would ask that the attorney not attempt to testify on behalf of her client in her statements to you, so that she's trying to prompt them as to how they should respond to some of my questions. That's number one. Number two, if you read the face of the, the section of the city code that they're relying upon pertaining to an alleged nuisance on my property reads as follows: any nuisance within the city affecting or likely affect the health or morals of the community, not specifically mentioned or described, may be abated, and the maintaining of such nuisance may be punished as provided in this chapter. That's the nuisance chapter of the city. Now, that's a very broad catch-all phrase, but what it does require is that if the government is going to impose a lien or a fine or a penalty on someone, at the very and they're basing that imposition on an alleged violation of this code, and by their own order, the order says that, okay, resident, if you have found that your property is in violation, you must get it in compliance. And once it's in, or otherwise you could face a penalty. All right. And if the city brings it back before us, the magistrate, to establish that you're not in compliance, then the magistrate can impose these penalties. So for me to ask the government, Ms. Bostic, to say, well, if you're saying my property was a nuisance, not only Ms. Bostic, but Mr. Cribbs, they have to be able to say, well, yeah, this is why it was a nuisance. This is why I cited for a nuisance. Otherwise, we don't live, that's not due process. Otherwise, we live in a totalitarian state, and that's not what code enforcement is for. So that's a real simple question. The city ought to be able to say, oh, it was a nuisance. Yeah, it was cited as a nuisance because of X, Y, and Z. And at the last hearing, Ms. Bostic said, well, because you had to make repairs on the inside. That's what she's already said. So I'm just picking up from what she said the last time. Now, the lawyer may not like it, but that's what Ms. Bostic said, and that's the basis of the case. And I should be able to ask not only Ms. Bostic, but Mr. Cribbs, if he sent out notices and said it was a nuisance, they got to say why. They can't just say it's a nuisance. They got to say, well, what's a what do you mean?
So to the extent, so I agree with both of you on some points. Ms. Guido, I agree. I'm not here to review what the prior magistrate has already ruled. So there's already been a finding that the property was in violation based on the home being a nuisance. However, you are able to inquire about the ongoing nuisance that is being alleged, which is the subject of the imposition of the fine.
Yes, Ms. Bostic, what was the ongoing nuisance that you or your department determined was occurring at my property?
Again, I did not cite the case, but in the records, it indicates there were complaints lodged against the property for the nuisance of mosquitoes breeding, the overall condition of the opening of the skylight, as we discussed, the repairs needed to be made on the property. You did not get a permit until 2 years after the notice of violation was issued.
Okay, so let me make, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead if you were still.
Right, so the nuisance,
Oh, I'm sorry. You said a date of the, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I didn't hear the date
we
of the
started.
permit. No, of the permit. Sorry.
The permit was not issued until, I believe the file indicate the permit was not issued until 2018, 2 years after our case started. There was no appeal, no extension request or anything prior to the obtaining of the permit.
Ms. Bostic, can you please read the section of the order which you believe gave the city the right to impose the lien that you're asking this magistrate to oppose on my property, and cite the section of the lien and the amount of money and how you came up with the amount of the proposed lien?
Okay. At this point, I'm going to
Okay,
read.
hold on. So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Brown, if you can take it one at a time.
All righty. I thank you, Madam Magistrate. Please cite the section of the lien, Ms. Bostic, that you believe, the section of the order that you believe found my property to be in violation of the city's nuisance ordinance.
The magistrate ruling was on August the 18th, 2016. There were several violations on the property, as you
Can you
all
read
know.
each one, please?
The nuisance section code was not complied out as of the hearing date. Your section code was cited 11-8, and it read, situation which affects or is likely to affect the public health, safety, or welfare of the citizens of the city. That's what our section code was written on your notice of violation originally.
Okay. Now,
The remedy was stop any situation which is a nuisance to the public. Please make all needed repairs to the interior and exterior of this property. That's what the inspector wrote on the notice. That's what was sent to you on your notice. And that's what we're standing on, that fight that your property was deemed to be a nuisance because of the needed repairs that you got a permit to repair.
the order that you are reading from gave me 30 days to correct those issues, correct?
Let me pull up the order again.
That's what I want you to do.
All right, the magistrate order. You are correct. It gave you 30 days, or you would be fined $100 per day.
And then what else does it say about the right to come back before, read down in the next paragraph about compliance or non-compliance and how the magistrate would be put on notice as to whether or not there was compliance.
Well, it says the code enforcement is directed to inspect the subject premise.
Read
That
that
one.
paragraph, right, read that entire paragraph.
The code enforcement officer is hereby directed to inspect the subject premise from the time to time to ensure compliance with this order and shall promptly report his or her findings of non-compliance to the special magistrate.
All right, and go on, what's the next paragraph?
If the respondent or agent shall fail to comply with this order, the matter will be set in a hearing before the magistrate to consider the assessment of the administrative fine of up to $250 per violation and the imposition of a lien as set forth in section 162.09 Florida statute, and the special magistrate retain jurisdiction over this matter for such purposes.
And so in essence, from that 2018 order, that is what 2016 order, that is what you're back before this special magistrate to tell her that my property is a nuisance, correct? And you want her to impose, I'm sorry, you want her to impose excuse me, that you want her to impose a lien against my property because you're saying that from 2016 to the present, that my property has been a public nuisance, correct?
Your Honor, if we could ask one question at a time, it might help to be able to get one.
Your Honor, also, I plan to call the attorney as a witness as well because she's in the review file. She's in these emails as well. So I'll be happy to give her a chance to testify. All right.
Hold on. So I don't think it's proper to say we're going to call an attorney to testify. She can't testify. However, I am going to ask individual questions. Let whoever the witness is have an opportunity to answer, so that we need a clear record, and two, I need to make sure I'm getting the answer to all the questions that you're asking. So if you can re-ask the question, because I think you did ask two questions in one, and I don't know if you moved on from the first question about the nuisance.
I'll start and try to stay concise. So after the Miss Bostic, so is the purpose of this hearing, the city's code enforcement department's effort to comply with the language of the order that you just read, which said that if the city felt that I had not eliminated the quote nuisance on my property, that you would ask the magistrate to impose a fine. Is that why we're here?
Yes, that's why we're here.
All right, so, and from the 2016 order to now, I've reviewed your file pertaining to my property several times. And I'm asking you, what is it in that file or on my property that you are telling this special magistrate that a condition affecting or likely to affect the health or morals of the community that was not specifically mentioned in the other part? This is a very broad category. What was it about from 2016 to now that you are telling this special magistrate that existed on my property, my personal property, that was affecting or likely to affect the health or morals, let's deal with that, the health of the community.
Mr. Brown, I'm gonna stick with what the remedy was. Have you corrected the remedy? It states, please
Your Honor,
make all the
Your
needed
Honor.
repairs to the interior and exterior of this property.
Your
You
Honor,
Paint,
can you please direct the witness to answer my question,
No,
please?
I'm reading the question, I'm reading the
I'm
answer.
talking to the matter.
Okay,
I'm
hold on.
talking-
I don't, hold on. So I don't want, we're not gonna fight. If you're gonna make an objection, I need you to say objection. So then I'll stop her or whoever the witness is. What is your objection to her answer?
My question is, what is it that she or the city is indicating that since the entry of the original order that occurred at my property, one, that affected the health of the community?
Okay.
Mr. Brown, your notice was sent out in
So
2016.
Miss Bostic, I'm gonna ask you to just, don't speak directly to him. I want you to just answer the question. What was the violation regarding?
Health, the health of the community.
The complaint, well, I'm just saying, the health of the community was this is not my case, so I'm gonna just go on it from what I'm doing with, okay?
I'm sorry, from what you what?
I'm reading from what's in the record, okay? And the question that you're asking me, you want me to tell you, answer what the meaning was behind the original notice of violation.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
Well, you asked me what constitute your
Hold on,
property.
let him, if you don't understand the question, then I'm gonna ask him to ask it again so that you understand what the question is and you can answer. And if you can't answer a question, then just say you can't answer or ask him to restate the question,
Correct.
okay?
From the time that the previous special magistrate entered the order, which you've indicated, which forms the basis for why we're here, as the co-director of Riviera Beach, please tell me, what is it about my property that from the time of that order to now that affected the health of the community? Or can you tell me that?
As far as the health of anybody, I can't explain what health issues they were.
Number two,
Okay.
same question. Since the entry of the order, what is it about my property that existed on my property that affected the morals of the community?
Okay, the moral effect of this.
No, the morals, like, you know.
Okay, no. So she's answering it. Let her answer.
The condition of your property was deemed to be a nuisance because of the repairs that needed to be made.
Madam Magistrate, I'm going to ask the question again, and please direct the witness to answer if she can. Ms. Bostic.
So I think she answered. We don't get to keep asking her because we don't like the answer, but she gave what her answer is to the question.
Well, can you read the answer back, Madam Court Reporter? Read the question, please, and please read the answer.
Number 2, same question. Since the entry of the order, what is it about my property that existed on my property that affected the morals of the community? The morals. Answer the morals, question the morals. Like, you know, she's answering it. Let her answer. Answer, the condition of your property was deemed to be a nuisance because of the repairs that needed to be made.
Madam Magistrate, my question again is, well, maybe let me ask you this. Ms. Bostic, do you know what the word moral means?
Honor, the relevancy of this goes back to the original finding of violation, which is not at issue in this hearing.
Overrule it because he did preface it with since the entry of that order.
Okay.
Which is what is the subject of the hearing. So
Okay,
overrule,
understood.
you can answer.
Ms. Bostic, do you know what the word morals mean?
Yes, Mr. Brown, I do.
All right. And you don't have any complaints that my property was used for like a strip joint or anything, correct?
No, sir.
You don't have any complaints that there were naked women or men and alcohol and something that was going on my property, correct?
I don't personally have any of that. So if you're asking me, the answer is no.
So morally, can you, if you can, and if you don't know, if you don't know, please answer, but can you describe for the record, for the magistrate, what was morally wrong with my property from the entry of the order to today?
I really can't answer that question for you.
Okay. Now, let me move forward. Did you become aware that that several of the items that were in the initial code enforcement order were complied with? For example, the trash cans. Did you have a complaint that the trash cans were still out by the road? Are you saying that from the time of that?
I believe all your other section codes were complied with.
Okay, all right. So, and let me skip ahead. So then is it fair to say that the only section of the code that you believe and you're testifying to that wasn't complied with was the nuisance section, correct?
That is the only section code that the code officers never closed out, correct?
Okay, all right. And do you know if your colleague there, Mr. Gibbs, knows, have you discussed with him about something that he thought was affected the health of the community on my property?
We never had that discussion.
And the same question, did you have that discussion with him about whether there's something that was immoral going on my property?
We never had that discussion.
All right. Did there come a time that you became aware that a permit was obtained by me to renovate my property?
It's in the record.
When did you become aware of that?
During a follow-up inspection document, it was sent over by you.
Okay. So in other words, the first time that you or your office became aware that the building department had issued a permit that allowed me to do work on my property was when I sent your office a letter saying, hey, I have a permit and I'm renovating my property. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, sir.
All right. And so from the time, and do you know when the first permit was issued by the building department that allowed me to renovate my property?
I have a report of or a list of the permits that you applied for, and one of the dates would be you applied for them on October the 19th, 2018.
Okay.
And it was issued on October the 19th, 2018.
All right. Now, and so from October, at least from October the 19th of 2018 forward to some point, I obtained a permit to do the very renovations in the house that you have testified and complained to about in your earlier testimony, correct?
It appears you did, but you
All
didn't.
right. And so when I got the permit to do the renovations for the property, did that not affect or impact your thoughts as to whether or not you believe that I was violating the code by not making repairs to my property?
It didn't say start, it said you must make them repairs, not just start them.
All right, let me
So
ask you.
until it's complied, I would not close it out.
All right, I'm sorry?
Until it's complied, the staff would not close it out.
And and at some point, you actually went out and visited my property, didn't you?
Correct.
And you went and took pictures of my property, didn't you? On the inside.
No, sir.
Oh, well,
That is not
okay.
true. I never-
Did you authorize?
Hold on. Let her finish answering, please.
No, sir. I never took pictures or inside of your property.
Do you know of any of your subordinates or colleagues who took pictures of the inside of my property?
I've seen pictures of the inside of your property. As which inspector took the pictures, I can't say right now.
And do you, okay, and when I say inspector, I'm talking about code inspectors, right? We're not talking about building officials. We're talking about people in your department, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever direct any of them to take pictures inside of my property?
No, I wouldn't never tell them direct to take pictures inside, but if they're inspecting your property and they see they can take pictures of the side, front, whatever, they would take pictures.
I didn't say the exterior. I said that.
Again, I'm advising you, if I may, how we take our photos. We take pictures from the side, the front, and if your place is vacant, they can take properties from the rear. We will walk on a rear property if it's not secure, but we take pictures from the front. Yes, sir.
Do you instruct your employees to go into somebody's house without permission and to take pictures?
No one would have entered your property.
Is it the practice of your office that your employees would enter a property to take pictures?
At the owner's request, we enter a property if it's occupied, but if it's not occupied, we do not enter.
And so if there are pictures of the inside of my property that were in that file, what is your explanation for how those pictures got in your file?
Is your property boarded up? If it's not boarded up, the pictures could be taken from the outside of the property.
If there are pictures, and I'll put them in on my portion of the case, that clearly reveal that the pictures were taken by someone standing inside of the property, and I know I never gave them any permission to enter my property, do you have any idea how that would occur?
I don't believe those pictures were taken from, if you saw photos here, they were not taken from the inside of your property.
Do you know if anyone from your department or anyone that you sent out there broke a window and climbed through a window to take pictures of my property?
No, sir.
Okay. And so if the pictures that are in your file shows that they could only have been taken from inside of the house, what is your explanation for how that occurred?
I can't answer that because I'm not saying anyone did that. So if you're asking me if I know, I'm saying no, I do not know, and that's not practice to go into your property.
And if it was done, that was in violation of your practices and procedures, correct?
It was never directed, and I can't answer if anyone went into your property. I did not enter your property.
Right, but my question is, and if one of your employees entered the property unlawfully and without permission and took pictures, that would be a violation of your procedure, correct?
Was your property open so they can enter?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, then there would be no reason for them to enter.
And if they broke a window?
Are you insinuating that staff broke a window to enter your?
If someone broke a window to get into the property, to take a picture, that would be in violation of your procedures, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. I think we've really strayed off the relevancy of the issue in this hearing.
I would sustain that objection.
Thank you.
Your Honor, Madam Magistrate, I'll bring it up again when I introduce the pictures on my portion of the case, which clearly show that this testimony is questionable, okay? And it's relevant because, well, I'll get to it when I bring them up.
Well, the issue is that, well, one, I'm not sure how it's relevant, but more so, she testified that she has no knowledge of any of these situations. So that information is not in evidence as of yet, so.
Okay, when I go to move them in, thank you, Madam Magistrate. All right, Ms. Bostic,
Yes.
you said something earlier that, and I'm paraphrasing it, so correct me if I'm misstated. Once a permit is applied for, you say you don't close out the file until it's completed. What, did I say that right? Until the construction is completed.
I believe you was asking if I knew if you obtained a permit,
Correct.
and I read the record that says the date you received it and the date you applied for it. And then I wanted to say we wanted you to comply with the repairs, and we wouldn't close it until you have made all the repairs.
Okay. Now, and the repairs that you say I needed to comply with, again, trace back to the morality and the health issues and the nuisance section that you say you really couldn't explain as to how they apply to my property, correct?
What was your question to that?
Madam Court Reporter, can you read it back?
And the repairs that you say I needed to comply with, again, trace back to the morality and the health issues and in the nuisance section that you say you really couldn't explain as to how they applied to my property, correct?
I'm basing this all on the remedy. It says, please make all needed repairs to the interior and exterior of this property.
Do you know the plumbing that I'm replacing in my property? Do you know how that affected, or how do you think, how would you say that affected the morality of the community?
What repairs are you making?
The plumbing,
I don't know about any,
the electrical,
none of that.
the drywall that I'm putting in.
Sir, I don't know anything about your permits as far as what it would affect or the morale or the health, safety of all of that, because that's not part of this case.
Okay. You said you found out that the building permits were issued in 2018. Did you also discover that there were several building permits that were issued? Well, did you become aware that there was a demolition permit was issued, correct?
Correct. You have 5 permits that's listed here.
All right. Now, and the fact that I have 5 permits did not give you an indication that I was a property owner who was trying to comply to get his property up to, at least to refurbish his property. That didn't have any impact on you considering that my property was a quote nuisance?
The original case started in 2016, and there was no effort made to make the repairs. You applied for your permit in 2018. That showed that you were working towards bringing the property compliance.
How do you know I wasn't making repairs before 2018 to the inside of my property that didn't require a permit?
I really don't know what you were doing inside your property.
Exactly. And so since you don't know, then how could you then state that it was a nuisance?
So you were cited for the inside and outside. If we eliminate the inside, we still have to talk about the exterior of your property needing repairs.
Well, that's interesting. What do you mean?
Your notice had 2 parts. It says inside and outside. So
No, I'm saying in the outside.
Your permits on the inside, which is in the record that you did apply for your permits. You did obtain your permits and you did some work. That's a fact. That's not the question at this point, from us. My point is, did you comply with the order?
What on the outside did I not do?
The skylight was not repaired. It's still not in repair. In the columns, that's the photos. I'm going by the photos that the inspector take to show violations.
Is there something in the original order said that I had to eliminate my skylight?
No, there's nothing verbatim or identifying any actual window, door.
Right, and because again, and well, let me move on. So from the time when you went out to visit the property, had you already discovered, had I already placed you on notice that I had permits to refurbish the property, or was that afterwards, after your visit, that you discovered it?
I believe you had already had your permits and they were either expired at this point.
And you went out there with the gentleman from the building department, correct?
Yes, and I believe there's, after I had a chance to review our file, Inspector Cribs is taking the photo and he was with us.
And the gentleman that you went and viewed, by the way, what were the circumstances that caused you to go out with the building inspector to view my property?
I stated last time, I don't remember why we were there. Okay,
And after you visited the property, are you aware that that gentleman wrote me a letter and told me to cease and desist from doing any more work on my property? You aware of that?
if it's in the file, then yes, it will be in the file.
Did you all discuss him issuing that letter to me when you were visiting my property?
I don't direct the building official to do.
No, I didn't say if you directed him. I asked, did you all discuss, you and the building director, discuss him issuing a cease and desist order regarding my property?
I don't recall that, Mr. Brown.
Do you know how it is or why it is, the circumstances that caused you and he to go to my property at the same time?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered several times.
Sustained. She says she doesn't know. She doesn't recall the circumstances. She said that the last hearing too.
Do you know how long you stayed on the property?
What, 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
In addition to Mr. Cribs and the building official, was anyone else there?
No,
Did one of your council members call you up and ask you to go on my property?
no,
Did some of the residents in the community ask you to go on my property?
no.
Do you know why after that visit, the building official sent me a cease and desist letter?
I answered, I don't know. Were you doing any work? That will mean he will ask you to cease and desist. I can't answer for the building department.
In 2017, did you, let me strike that. Did someone ask you to try and get a final order of violation against my property in 2017?
I don't understand that question. Get a final.
Okay, in reviewing the file, I came across an email from you, between you and Ms. Godot, dated August 15, 2017. So you have your file there, and I'll give you a minute if you can, if I may, Madam Magistrate, for her to find it.
That's fine.
So what am I looking for now?
It's an email from a string of emails from Miss Godot to you, dated August 15th, 2017. And then there's one dated June 19th, 2017. And I got these from that file there that you have. So I guess we should really start with the one in June and work from there. Actually starts at June 18th.
June 18th.
You see there's an email from Mr. Evans, the city manager, to you inquiring about my property. You see that?
Not yet. I haven't come across that one. I'm going back to this file is quite large. Let's see. Okay. If you have, you want to share your screen so you can show it to us, because it might make it easier if you do that. And you say the 17? Okay, I got it.
You got him?
Well, let me.
All right. So there's a,
Okay, go ahead with your question.
all right, there's a
Hold
strict,
on a second. I don't have it. I'm looking through what I have. I don't have it up yet. I'd like to be able to reference it while he's asking questions.
Is this email to me or from me or?
well, there's a string of emails, and this one is from Jonathan Evans to you, dated June 18th, 2017.
Okay. And your question for,
Oh, I'm sorry, you located it?
yeah, I have it here.
All right.
Sorry,
I
I
don't
think,
have it.
hold on, I think Ms. Godot asked to have a minute so she can pull it up.
I'm looking for it. If I can find it, in my own emails.
Ms. Godot, this one doesn't look like it was copied to you. This is from Mr. Evans to Ms. Bostic, and it was copied to Ms. Jacobs, Laddie March. Those are the only two other people.
Okay, do you have a way to share screen it so that I can observe?
Well, yeah, I do. It'll take me a minute, and what I'll do is, here's what I'll do even better. That's quicker. If you will give me, and then when Madam Magistrate, if we take a break before this is over, I'll upload my documents before I get started. But if that's okay, Ms. Godot, you give me a quick fax number, I'll fax it over to you right now.
Can you email it to me?
I can do that.
Okay, it's Christy, Christy, at torcivialaw.com, which is TOR, C as in Charlie, I, V as in Victor, IALAW.com.
I guess I'm one of the few old guys that's still faxing, right?
So let's take a 5-minute recess because Ms. Godot wants to have that before you finish your questioning.
All right, thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll be in recess for 5 minutes.
Okay. Yes, Your Honor.
We
Thank
can
you.
resume. Mr. Brown, you can continue on with your question.
So, Ms. Bostic, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. All right, I'm going to refer you to now that I'll have marked as an exhibit. On my portion of the case, I'll wait. But it's dated June 18, 2017 at 5:32 p.m. to you from Mr. Jonathan Evans. Do you have that?
I do.
All right, and have you, if you haven't had a chance, take a chance to read it, then I want to ask you some questions.
Okay, I've read it.
Mr. Evans is the city manager, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he wrote you an email about my property, correct?
Yes.
Do you know who or what caused him to write you an email about my property?
It states he was receiving calls from residents.
Did you talk to, I know what it states, but do you know independently of what's in his email, what might have caused him to do it?
To write me?
Yes, do you know independently of what he's, in other words, do you know if his council person over there called him about my property?
Not really, doesn't really say that in here, but
Do you know?
no.
Ms. Botel is her name, correct? That's the council person that represents Singer Island?
Yes, it does. She does.
All right, do you know if she represented it in 2017?
She was counsel.
Has Ms. Botel ever called you about my property?
Call me?
Right.
No.
Has she ever sent you an email about my
It-
property?
Is it in his file?
I didn't ask whether she sent you an email and you put it in the
I get emails
file. Excuse
Okay,
me.
let me hold
I
on.
didn't ask you whether if she sent you an email and you put it in the file. I asked you, and we're all under oath, has Ms. Botel ever sent you an email regarding my property?
I'm gonna say no. He would probably go up the chain and down.
All right. Has anyone on behalf of Ms. Botel, other than the manager, sent you an email about my property?
Anybody else other than the manager?
Yes, on behalf of Ms. Botel, anyone other than the manager, on behalf of Ms. Botel, sent you an email about my property.
I don't know, Mr. Brown. I don't know, Mr. Brown.
You don't remember or you don't know?
I don't remember. I get emails all the time, sir, so.
And as a code enforcement officers are not allowed to use is not allow elected officials to use the code enforcement office for political purposes, correct?
Correct.
All right. And is that something that's prohibited under your code of regulations as a code enforcement officer? So is that something that they taught, that the standards of professionalism teach you to abide by?
Correct. We wouldn't do that. It's political. A violation is a violation, sir.
Right. And political pressure wouldn't have been the cause why you came out to my property, correct?
No, a violation is a violation.
How many times a year do you go?
A complaint is a complaint, a violation is a violation. So
How often do you go out and visit?
Can you let Ms. Bostic please finish her statement?
Yeah, let her finish the answer before you start asking the next question. Were you done, Ms. Bostic?
Yes, I think I'm with that answer, yes.
Okay.
How often do you go out on properties?
I sweep the city all the time, sir.
I didn't say how many you sweep the city. I said, how often do you go out on properties?
Quite often.
Twice a week, once a week, 10 times a week, particularly in 2017.
Going back. 2017, quite often.
What about 2020?
Even with the pandemic, I've been going, we have nonstop.
How many since the pandemic, how many properties have you gone out and visited?
Quite a few.
Could you give an estimate?
Your Honor, the hearing's going to last for the next 3 days if we don't try to focus on the issue that's relevant. So I'm going to object to this line of question about how often every year Ms. Bostic goes out to properties.
Okay, I'm gonna let him finish up this question, just because I believe he's looking to demonstrate bias, so I do believe that it is relevant. I'm gonna give you some leeway, but I don't want this to, I would like to finish today, but obviously I'm not going to limit you because of a time issue. I'm gonna give you all the time you need, but I get it, but I'm not stopping you from asking the questions, but if we can wrap it up or something.
I understand, Jan, and I'll do better. Ms. Bostic, was there any political pressure placed on you regarding my property?
No, I've been here many years. I don't feel the pressure of
And since you've been here many years, you know I used to be the mayor here for many years, correct?
yes, you were the mayor.
And you know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I say you've been the mayor since I've been here.
And you know, when I was the mayor, are you aware that when I was mayor, there are some people, political enemies that developed on Singer Island?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Have you ever went out and met with anyone on my street that live on Gulfstream Way about my property?
If they came out when I was there, then I would have met with somebody. If anybody came out and asked what's going on, I would have answered any questions. Making appointments, no.
Do you remember whether somebody came out when you were there on my property to talk about my property?
With Mr. Guy, no.
Well, how many times did you visit my property?
Whatever day that was, but I couldn't remember the year with Mr. Guy.
That was the only time?
Yes.
All right. And really what I'm asking is, so on that day, nobody came to the property that you met with in the neighbor, correct? Or did I miss something?
I believe we're missing something. I'm not sure where we're going with this question. You
It's
asked
real
me,
simple.
I've been to the
It's real
property,
simple.
I've been to.
Hold on. So, hold on. Ms. Bostic, if you don't know the answer, then that's fine. But the question is, did anyone come out and talk to you when you went out to the property with Mr. Guy? If you can answer that question.
I'm trying to remember the whole day from that visit, Mr. Brown. It's been a minute. When I visit properties, which is quite often, people are either home or not home, or on the weekends. If I'm at a place and people have questions, I will answer the questions. I can't recall on that day.
I'm going to refer you to that same string of emails, which actually is missing a page. Page 4 is missing, ironically. I'm going to refer you to page 3 of that email. And at the bottom there, it's an email from Ms. Godot to Mr. Evans, Ms. March, and you. You see that?
Yes, she was addressing to Ms. March. Yes, I see it.
Right, and she says, I agree with your assessment, however, and she go on from there. Now, my page 4 is missing. Do you have a page 4 that you're looking at in your file there? Because if you look at the bottom of the page, it's 1. Actually, my page 2 is missing too. All I have is 1, 3, and 5. And so page 2 and 4 are missing. Do you have page 2 and 4 of those string of emails?
Okay, I need to turn it out. Hold on.
They should be together in the same place where you,
I know, I'm flipping the page, the book around, okay? The file around, sorry. Yes, I have page 4 here. I have page 4.
all right. Now, on page 4, Miss Marsh apparently has some comments regarding this property, correct?
Yes.
All right. And can you tell us what Miss Marsh said about this property?
It says there's several remedies available to us outside of code enforcement that are under the building code. I would first see if we could obtain a manifest or call dispatch to the address on the police side. I would do a site visit first thing tomorrow for hazards that pose an immediate hazard to the safety and public welfare of the community. She said she would go out and post it.
Right.
I'll check for permits, open or expired, to see what we can do next.
All right. And as a result, do you know if any hazardous posts were ever put on the property?
I don't know.
And had she done that, that's something you would be interested in, right? Particularly since you're looking for nuisances that might affect the public health and public, correct?
But if the building department posts something, that will fall under the building code.
All right.
Already started, so it will fall under the building code.
Now I'm going to refer you to the first page of, and by the way, I ordered an entire copy of your file. I paid for a receipt for it. Do you have any idea why I didn't get page 2 and 4 of the email and I only got page 1, 3, and 5? Do you know why?
Can't answer that. I didn't make the copy, sir.
All right.
You know your files.
On page 1, there's an email from Ms. Godot to you.
Page 1.
The first page of the email, I'm sorry. Up at the top is dated August 15, 2017.
Okay.
All right. And here you see, take a minute to read that. Have you read it?
I'm reading it now, so.
All right, and so the thing for emphasis is that this is dated, Ms. Godot is writing to you saying that okay, you can bring this back for a final order, which is what we're here for today, okay? So you and Ms. Godot, is it fair to say you all were discussing this? If I look at this email, you were discussing this hearing in 2017, correct?
A possibility to, yes.
All right. And after Ms. Godot advised you about the process for scheduling this type of hearing, you found out later that I pulled a permit to make improvements for my property, but yet that still didn't stop any enforcement activity that you considered your office was entitled to take against my property, correct?
No, that has nothing to do with it. Property is still not in compliance.
So is it your position that when my house is fully completed, even though I've had permits, applied for permits, complied with the law of the city of Riviera Beach, your position is, despite any improvements made, that my property would still be in violation and you would be entitled to put a lien against it for days during the time that the improvements were being made?
Objection, Your Honor, compound.
Yeah, I need you to break it up into single questions,
All right,
Mr. Bennett.
Judge. And you know, one way we get through faster is when I do, okay, I'll go back and I'll delay it. Okay. Ms. Bostic? Is it your position that, strike that, once my property is completely renovated, is it your position that the law of Florida allows the Code Enforcement Department to ask this magistrate to impose a lien against my property, even though I was making improvements pursuant to a city permit?
Was that a question? I wasn't, you kind of froze in the middle of it, so.
I'm sorry, did the screen freeze?
It's like it stalled a little bit, so.
That's my stall move. Okay. Madam Court Reporter, can you repeat that, please?
I'll repeat what I got.
I'll make it easier. Madam.
It says once
Okay, go ahead.
Once my property is completely renovated, the law of Florida allows the Code Enforcement Department to ask this magistrate to impose a lien against my property, even though I was making improvements pursuant to the city permit.
Is that your position?
We're imposing our fine against the property based on the time that you have not corrected the violation.
And so even during the time that the valid permits were there, even though we were working, you believe that the code, you have the right to ask this magistrate to impose a fine on the property, even during the time the permits were issued?
Yes, sir. Until you have met the requirement to comply with the order. There are other options once you have complied to ask for a reduction.
Does expanding a bathroom to a larger bathroom constitute remedying a nuisance, in your view?
You were not cited for your bathrooms.
Does replacing galvanized pipe with new pipe plumbing constitute, or does the existence of older galvanized pipe in a house constitute a nuisance under the City of Riviera Beach Code?
You were not cited for your plumbing, sir.
Does moving the kitchen from one place to another constitute remedying a nuisance at my property?
Mr. Brown, no. I wouldn't know if it's a nuisance. You weren't cited for that section, that repair.
What is your total amount of the alleged nuisance fine that you want this magistrate to enter, and how did you calculate it?
If I may, Magistrate, I have Ms. Phillips, our code technician, who has the amount of the fine that we're asking to be imposed.
All right, so she,
Hold on, what are you asking? I'm sorry.
He wants to know the total amount that's due or requested.
Madam Magistrate, I asked, how was it computed? You can give me an amount, but how did they arrive at the amount?
So you're asking her, you're not asking for the amount, you're asking how she computed the amount.
Correct.
Okay, Ms. Bostic, can you answer that question?
Yes, Magistrate.
Okay.
The fines are calculated daily at $100 per day.
And from what day or period of time did the calculation begin?
The original calculation would have started 30 days after the ruling of the original magistrate. But in 2018, the fines were waived and adjusted. And so they started calculating in 2018 into current. And I have a breakdown. We have a breakdown of how many days the nuisance started on October the 1st, 2018 at $100 per day.
And who is it that determined that my property was a nuisance on October the 1st of 2018?
The magistrate did rule on that in 2016, and it still has not complied.
No, on the day that it started, that you started your computation, who was it that determined, let me ask it a different way. Who was the person that determined, all right, on what day you said the fine started?
They were restarted again in October 1st, 2018. Originally, they were started back in 2016.
Let's deal with October the 1st of 2018.
Okay.
All right. Let's even go back. Let's go back to what you think was the original date that they started. Okay. Well, what's that date again?
The original findings of facts date,
The date that you said the fine started.
30 days after the magistrate ruling in 2016.
And that would have been what date?
For the order. It would have been around September the 18th, 2016.
And what on September the 18th of 2016 on my property affected the health of the community?
The magistrate ruled in the city favor that the property needs to be repaired, and the ruling entered, and we move forward with the fines.
And what on that date affected, on my property, affected the morals of the community?
You want me to go back to the notice of non-compliance and see if there was anything?
No, just tell me on that date what it that affected it. And who determined that on that date that my property affected the health or morals of the community?
Who determined it on which date? The magistrate ruling date or the 30 days inspection date? Will it be the code officer that went out to do the inspection?
And who, that wasn't you?
No, it was not me.
All right, and who was that?
It would have been James Easley. He was the inspector at the time.
Do you know what Mr. Easley determined on that date that existed on my property that affected the health or morals of the community?
I can't say what Inspector Easley.
Okay. All right. And by your calculations that you then said you suspended them because something happened with the homestead law, correct?
Correct.
And so you're only calculating from what date forward? Sometime in 2018, correct? From 2018 forward. Same question, if it's the same answer. Who determined on the date in 2018 forward that it started that on that date, that my property affected the health or morals of the community?
So if I can go back and find an inspection for that time frame that you would have.
Well, but you've already said, you've calculated these numbers and you want this magistrate to put this huge fine on my property. So therefore, why wouldn't that be information that would be at your fingertips to establish from the beginning that, okay, here's the violation right here. And I have walked back.
Your property is still non-compliance, and when the inspection would have been completed, it would have still deemed to be a nuisance.
Health and
under that
morals,
section
health
called
and
an-
morals, health and morals. Tell me who and when.
There's an inspection here on August the 9th, 2018, non-compliance. And that was completed by James Shaw for landscape number and nuisance, non-compliance.
I asked you, okay, and again, I asked you landscaping and you said nuisance. And the nuisance that you cite to is in section 11.8. And I hate you keep going back to this, and that's why I keep coming back to it. So what did Mr. Shaw determine on the 8th, on the day you just cited, that my property, something on my property affected the health or morals of the community?
It could be the unkept of the property, the sanitation of the property, the weeds, the bushes, those are all tied into a nuisance. I can't speak for Mr. Shaw.
You don't know, do you?
If you ask me what Mr. Shaw thought, no, I don't know.
And the file doesn't say it either. Mr. Shaw's notes don't say it either, does it?
It does not outline it.
All right. And what is the amount that you've calculated? Or your office has calculated?
As currently for today,
Yes.
may I ask Ms. Phillips to give us a total?
The magistrate,
You don't-
yeah, magistrate, if she has someone designated to do that, I don't have any objections to her saying that.
Okay, then without objection, that's fine.
One second.
Or Madam Magistrate, if what might be easier is if she want Ms. Phillips to come in, because I'm pretty much done with Ms. Bostic, I can ask Ms. Phillips a few questions and be done with that.
Your Honor, we can certainly call Ms. Phillips to provide that direct testimony and allow Mr. Brown to